All right, so we're setting another trap right here. We've been pretty successful with this. I've never set one on a sand pile like this, but it seems to be working because every time we've seen tracks, they've been all over this sand pile. We've seen a lot of cache holes all through it. So pretty much we set here and it's been super successful. So if you guys have a sand pile or something along that, loose dirt, mound, seems like fox like it. So let's get into it. I'm just gonna start setting. First thing we're doing is we're kind of prepping the site. You want it to look somewhat natural, but you obviously also want your trap to be in the low point, and you want your sides to be kind of built up around it, or at least something to make them come to the low point, because your predators are always going to walk in the lowest point of travel because that makes them feel more secure. One thing I like about this sand too is it's also really easy to work with packing your trap down and working the site to make it look really natural. So right now we're just getting a good hole to make sure the trap can sit in there good and deep, because you want your trap to be a good inch or two lower than your surrounding travel spot. One thing I like to do is whenever you go to set the trap, you get it all anchored in, you get your hole set up, just take your hammer, whatever you're using, your chisel, just dig you a good little hole right below it. That way when you go to set your trap in, you have somewhere for your chain to lay nice and smooth, so your trap lays good and flat. I found on this sand it's really hard to get the trap set because I use a MB 550 4-coil trap, so it's pretty tight. So you have to have something pretty sturdy up under it to get it to set.
If you got yourself, that'd be pretty bad.
So now that it's in there, at this point, all we're gonna do is make sure that you set your trigger. It's like cocking the hammer at this point. You're just gonna push down, get it kind of close. You'll hear a small click. And that hammer is cocked. It's actually the dog, but you can call it whatever you want to, really, as long as you're doing it. And you just get your base good and tight. You want to be able to push on both sides and it not wiggle. Flip this side over. Just have a little cushion up under it, and all that's doing is just making it even more stable. All right, back up, Frank. You just kind of want to build up the sides. That way when you build up the sides, it makes them have to come to the low point. What I like to do when I go to drill my hole is go ahead and cover your trap, and then go ahead and drill your hole. This is where you're gonna put your bait. This is imitating a cache hole. When you drill your hole, this sand is really hard to work with, but when you go to drill your cache hole, but other than that, it's really awesome. but you want your hole to be good and deep so it's not easy to get to. You don't want it straight down so they can actually try to work for it. You want it at an angle, but not too far at an angle to where that they can't come over the backside and dig it up easier. And just kind of make that firm around it so they can work it with it. All right, so from that point now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to pull our sifter off. We're going to make the trap look pretty. We're going to make sure that the pan, which is where the dog steps or whatever you're trapping, steps, fox, coyote, whatever, is the lowest part of the whole area. So, but you're also going to make it pretty. You're going to, dust a little bit around the edges of the cache hole to make it look like they've been working it. But just kind of like this. And this is just so you make sure you don't get no rocks in there or sticks and it trips the pan. And it generally builds up higher on the pan. So once you're done, you have to go back through with a brush and just kind of rake that off the pan. You just kind of have to remember your pan's right there. And I have tripped many doing this, so just be careful. Best thing you want to do when trapping is not get in a rush. Make sure you take your time. Make sure the site looks good. Make sure it looks natural. And what I like to do is once this all set, is just kind of build up the edges a little bit. That way they definitely want to step towards that center spot. And of course, like I said, you want to make it look a little natural, as natural as possible. Get your hand prints out as much as there. Do a little bit of scraping right there. Feather your edges. Get your boot prints out. And you'll have to touch it back up before you're done because I haven't put nothing in the hole yet. But I'm just trying to get the picture of it looking good first, and then we'll put the bait in there and go from there.
Kids, do not try this at home. If you are a kid and you think this is cool, always have an adult with you.
The bait that I prefer the most is a Dunlap Lures Soul Taker. This is like my absolute favorite bait. It's like, there's all sorts of stuff in there. It smells so terrible. It is like awesome. It works so good. And it's all mushed up, kind of looks like cat food. Just give it a little stir. I like to use a stick, and I'll show you what I like to do with the stick once you put the bait in. Get you a good chunk of it. Drop it off in there. Get you another chunk of it. What I like to do with the leftover that's on the stick, there's always going to be a little bit. Just kind of drag it. That way it gets some smell a little bit more more spread out. Throw it out there. That just brings a little more scent to the area.
And if you want to smell it, you can. It just smells very terrible.
So at this point, we're done. Only thing we're gonna do now is just kind of doctor up the area. Just make sure your last little touches look good. Clean your boot prints up. And that's how I like to set a trap. So as you can see, this is a pretty successful spot, and you can see the first part of the video, but a good fox right here, red fox.